cozy.
Yeah. We're all friends here.
Yeah, I was about to say, just as well.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here on the third day of TechCrunch Disrupt. We've got Dave Ferguson, the co-CEO of Nuro. We've got Sachin Kansal from Uber. He's the Chief Product Officer. And they recently announced a deal together with another company called Lucid Motors. You guys are going to be launching a robo-taxi service that you guys are going to be providing some tech for, you're going to provide the platform for. And today, you announced that the first market that's going to come to is, drumroll, here.
That's right. We're coming home.
Why here?
Well, I mean, this is both of our companies' homes. I think it's one of the most important markets. We love it. It's a huge, huge market, and we're very excited to get our local community in these vehicles.
I mean, for Uber, this was our home market. This is where we started. It is one of our biggest markets in the US as well. It's in the top 5. And we think that this is something that users are really looking for from us, and we want Uber users to be able to have this experience, and it's going to grow the market for all of us as well.
It's going to grow the market for all of you guys. There's also a pretty big player here in Waymo. What do you think the shape of the city will look like as far as these services working simultaneously once you're up and running next year? Is it going to be just, doubling the amount of robotaxis on the street, or do you think it'll shift the dynamics a little bit?
Well, first of all, Waymo is a great partner of ours.
Sure.
We operate with Waymo in Austin, Atlanta, and Phoenix today, and we have hundreds of cars with them on the road. And in San Francisco, as you said, Waymo is running their own app. And I think eventually, if you take this further by a couple of years, 2-3 years, you're going to see multiple providers with their technology in cities. And you're going to see all of us use different models, right? Waymo is partnering with us, as well as they have their own app. You're going to see other companies, and this is why we are very excited to be partnering with Nuro and with Lucid and launch starting in San Francisco. And I think we're going to go beyond that, and then what you're going to see is multiple providers, multiple apps. And where Uber stands is we are building a platform, and companies such as Nuro and Lucid come to us for scale. This is where you come for scale, because we have not just a demand platform with hundreds of millions of users, but we also have a marketplace, which is a combination of human drivers and now robots. And a lot of the work that we are doing from our side is certainly incorporating the amazing technology that Nuro is working on, but then be able to offer what we call a hybrid marketplace of drivers as well as robots. I think that is what is going to enable the best experience for the end user, both in terms of wait time as well as in terms of convenience.
So it'll be similar to like we see in Austin, where people will be able to hail a ride, and it isn't exactly prescribed that they'll get a robotaxi versus an Uber driver.
I think you will have a choice.
Yeah.
You will be able to either just say, I want an Uber X,
okay,
and then we can determine what's the best car to send to you. And there's a lot of intelligence that goes into it. We have sort of a pretty extensive AI system that actually makes that determination based on, for example, a self-driving car may not be able to pick up and drop off at every single point in the city.
Sure.
Right? So you may actually need to wait more. You may need to walk more. Certain pickups and drop-offs may or may not be possible. So we take all of that into account, and we make a decision on whether we should send you a human driver or we should send you a self-driving vehicle. So all of that is part of the platform.
From a product perspective, do you worry that Uber being the platform that you hail Waymos on in other cities, but not being the platform that's hosting Waymo here, does that introduce any confusion to Uber users?
I don't think it introduces any confusion because you're going to see just different models in different cities. So if you are a Uber user in Austin, the way it works today is you just use the product like usual, and either you use UberX, Comfort Electric, and since we are making the determination, and then we are giving the user a choice. So for example, if people have not used it in Austin or Atlanta, you will select UberX, and then we will tell you, hey, a self-driving car or Waymo is closest to you, and that's what we are sending. And you have a choice to make at that point. If you say, no, I don't want to do that, I actually want a human driver, you can turn that off. And if we send you a human driver, then it's your usual experience. So now if you're coming to San Francisco, you have a similar experience, which is in the Uber app, you request UberX and Comfort or Comfort Electric. And then what will happen is that we may send you a Nuro vehicle, or you may be able to select right there as a choice that I like to request a Nuro vehicle. So I think you will see the way the app works will continue to evolve, and that may have some variation city by city. But our job is to make the app extremely clear and extremely intuitive for the end users, and that's what we're working on.
Dave, why go with the Lucid Gravity? And Lucid's not here, so you can be honest.
The Gravity is a phenomenal vehicle. I mean, it's stunningly beautiful. It's an incredible ride experience. I think Jay-Z, my co-founder, just mentioned he fell in love with it through this process and bought one for himself. So it is going to be a very premium experience, which I think we and Uber were very excited about for this is the first major robo-taxi program that Uber is very heavily involved in, and so I think we wanted to knock it out of the park in terms of experience. It also has incredibly long range, it has a lot of features that are going to be very useful for operating it in the context of a fleet of shared mobility. It's not the last platform that we'll be working on with Uber either, or with Lucid, right? So they have a roadmap of different vehicles. We intend to have multiple different vehicles on the platform, so maybe some years from now the Gravity might be the Uber Black or the Uber XL, and there may be other ones as well that can better fit some of the other parts of the market.
It's the first robotaxi project that Uber's been involved with lately, but they used to try to develop their own. Is there a difference in the approach now from the Uber side of things, that you're not trying to do things completely in-house, or are there actually things that you learn from that as a company that you can apply to the integration and all of the work that goes into sort of owning this a little bit more versus it just being an external partnership?
Yeah, yes and no. Back in the day, starting in 2015, we had our own robotaxi L4 autonomy program, and then we had a very unfortunate incident in 2018. So we wanted to make sure that we put safety first. And during COVID, Dara made the extremely difficult choice of, if you're going to go asset free, and we're going to take a partner approach. And there were many questions at that time, but now fast forward to today, we have many partners in the space. So we think that our strategy is working out. Now, in terms of what do we care about, what do we not care about, learning from that, we have a very extensive safety framework. So all the partners we work with, and we work very closely with Nuro on this, need to make sure that we are following certain safety guidelines and requirements before any car comes on the platform. And the other thing that we learned that we are now applying, we were just talking about how amazing the Lucid car is. There's also a software platform that Lucid brings that allows us to integrate with them. Because if you think about it, there's no driver in the car. So there's a lot of software integration that needs to happen, all the way from, is the car door open or not? How do I start the trip once I get into the car? And so on, which some of you may have experienced in certain instances or not. So Lucid just makes it much easier for us to do that integration, of course, along with the L4 autonomy that Nuro brings to the same vehicle.
On the physical integration of your tech into their car, maybe people haven't had a chance to actually see a Gravity up close, but I think one of the things that stands out about it, there's a term in the automotive industry called packaging. Essentially, this is one of the best packaged cars I've ever seen, in the sense that the inside of the car feels like it goes all the way up to the absolute edges of the sheet metal.
Yeah.
Does that introduce challenges for you guys, though? Is there less room for you to integrate those sensors? I know you're going kind of on the roof, but does that change things?
No, because all of our sensing is effectively external to the vehicle. It didn't present any challenges from an integration perspective. I think from the one piece that perhaps might have potentially been a little bit more challenging is the compute. Like where does that go? It turns out that we can effectively just swap out the compute that Lucid was already using on the consumer vehicles and swap in a slightly beefier compute for L4 into the same packaging within the vehicle. So that's worked out really well.
You said you want to work with other partners eventually too, not just the future roadmap from Lucid, but did you evaluate anybody else before landing on the Gravity? And again, they're not here, so you can be honest.
We probably started the conversation with Uber like 2 years ago. And I think that there was alignment that we wanted to do something together and wanted to build a robotaxi. I think a big part of that, both initial interest from the Uber side and then obviously subsequently as we got more in the weeds, was we had a long history with Uber on the Uber Eats side. So in the sort of the former life of Nuro, we were doing delivery and delivery vehicles. We had a pretty positive partnership with Uber on Uber Eats. As part of that, to Sachin's point, Uber evaluated our safety case and the safety of the technology that we were deploying on public roads in a way that was much, much more rigorous than, frankly, any of the other partners that we had on the delivery side. And I think part of that process gave Uber more confidence in the way that Nuro was developing and deploying. And so I think they felt like we had a pretty good track record of safety and culture of safety. And so we sort of aligned 2 years ago that this is something worth exploring. We then considered a lot of different potential OEMs to be the partner to build this out, and we felt Lucid was the best for a number of reasons. So far, it's gone extremely well. I think we also mentioned this week we now have our first fleet of the modified gravities on public roads, collecting data. I think that engineering effort and how quickly it's all come together has been really testament to how well all three companies have been working together so far.
Lucid is backed by Saudi Arabia, or owned by Saudi Arabia. They're a public traded company. They have deep pockets there, but they are a startup. Is there risk there in choosing them to move forward with this program?
I mean, I'll say, I think maybe just to add to what Dave said, the general thing I'll say, we talk a lot about the ride-sharing service and the network that Uber brings. We talk a lot about where the autonomous software is coming from. I don't think it is as well understood how important the vehicle platform is, because there's both a question of capability as well as a question of scale. So ultimately, the decision that we have to make, and timeline, right? Timeline and scale are obviously related. We needed to make sure that we pick a partner who both can bring the right technology as well as the ease of integration, but also who can scale at the right timeline for us to be able to bring the robotaxi service out next year. And Lucid, passed sort of both of those checks. And as Dave mentioned, we already have the test vehicles on the road, which we need to do if we want to launch it by next year with the safety framework that we have put in place. So we think that we are in very good hands with them.
One of the elements that is critically important for deploying an L4 vehicle is that the core hardware has to have a level of redundancy in terms of the electrical architecture, steering, braking, sort of the whole kit and caboodle. Lucid had already designed the Gravity to be L3 capable, so they'd already built into all of the hardware this level of redundancy that is it's not very common for passenger vehicles, for stock ones. And so that already, to Sachin's point, gave us a massive leg up in terms of the timeline to get a vehicle that we could manufacture at scale available for L4 operation.
A couple more quick questions just about San Francisco, and then I want to move on. Are you expecting, when you launch next year, is this something that people are only going to experience here in the city, or are you looking at Bay Area?
It's going to be general Bay Area.
Okay. And there was a pricing study that I wrote about earlier this year that showed that Waymo rides are, at least for now, still a little bit more expensive than comparable Uber and Lyft rides. That doesn't seem to be stopping people from using it. Do you expect that to be true about your guys' service too? Like a bit more of a premium for that sort of special offering, or do you think it'll be a bit more cost comparable?
It's too early to tell. So I think anything that I'll be saying will be speculation and a guess right now. But given that the Lucid vehicle, allows us to be premium, it's entirely possible that it spans different pricing points. And we do different things. Even in our core business today, you will see that sometimes you may get a luxury vehicle even when you're requesting an UberX, because we have a lot of control and we can make a lot of decisions in the back end related to that. So I think time will tell.
It's been a pretty crazy week of autonomous vehicle news. There is your announcement today about San Francisco. There was a deal that you're involved with NVIDIA and Stellantis and Foxconn. Lucid had its own announcement about making its own vehicles level 4 autonomous with NVIDIA technology. Dave, you're someone who's been around the autonomous vehicle industry for a very long time, and with Nuro, you've gone through a couple different iterations of the company. But now it feels like we are back in a place where we were maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, where there seems to be a lot of optimism around the tech. Did you ever think that we'd get back to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of had to stick around. So I think we've been bullish on this for a long time, and for sure we've been through ups and downs. Look, I think a huge amount of credit needs to be given to Waymo, right? Like right outside the door, you can catch a Waymo and take it through much of the Bay Area. They've proven to the world that this tech is possible and that it works, and that it's an experience that people actually prefer generally over what it's replacing. And I think with that proof point comes conviction in the industry in general that was lagging for a while, for a couple years there. And I think that has reinvigorated a lot of the excitement around the potential, which I think people always recognized. I think now there's more of an expectation that we're going to get to realize that. And so I think it's great. I think that the way that the ecosystem has evolved has been pretty interesting. Like you mentioned, a few years ago, well, 5 years ago, maybe, we had various players that were building L4 technology, huge companies. We had Uber, we had Lyft, we had even Apple trying to build out L4. Then we went through a period where there was a lot of consolidation, and a lot of those massive players shifted their priorities. And now we're starting to see more players getting interested, like the likes of NVIDIA this week talking about L4. I think in general, it's fantastic for realizing the benefit that this technology is going to provide. We know this is an absolutely incredible product that we're all striving to build, and the more people that are investing in it, and the faster we can get to the scale across the board, I think the better. For Nuro, I think we've always recognized through all of these different competitors and different dynamics that we've had over the years that we need to just stay laser focused on building out this product and not be looking over our shoulders too much. It turns out, I think we have learned personally, and many others have learned over the last 9 years, that autonomy is an incredibly hard problem to solve. And I think unless you're maniacally focused and committed as an entire company to that effort, it's very, very hard to go the distance and pull it off. And so for us, we're fortunate. We're a startup. We are maniacs. We can stay focused on that. But that's what we need to worry about. It's really just delivering, and I'm sure there are still chess pieces that are going to be moving over the next couple of years, and things haven't totally shaken out.
You brought them up, so I got to ask, did you ever see what Apple was working on with that self-driving car?
We did not.
You?
I did not.
Yeah?
I think one thing I'll say to Dave's previous point, though, as big as Uber and a lot of other ride-sharing networks are, we're barely about 3% of the miles that are driven. So I think one of the reasons why the optimism on autonomy has always been in place, and we have spent many, many years, even at Uber, even though we kind of changed our direction on how we approach autonomy, we have said for many years that the future we see is autonomous, it's electric, and it's shared. And now with the autonomous technology being where it is, and what is now possible over the next 3 to 5 years, we think that the scale is just going to increase in terms of these vehicles being out there, making it a lot more affordable and making it extremely safe. And from our perspective, like, look, part of my job is to work with Dave and Nuro and our partners and autonomy. Part of my job is also to work with drivers and our core rideshare business. And for us, that's why the future is a combination and a collaboration between humans as well as machines. And we think that is going to accomplish a level of safety, convenience, and cost that is going to allow all of us to scale, and which is why I think the industry has made the progress that it has.
You mentioned your partners. You have, at my count today, something like 18 or 19 partners
20.
right now. 20?
But which one's your favorite?
Did a new one just pop up during
Let's
this
be
event?
honest.
Yeah.
Can you name them all?
I think I could name them all, but right now I
He could
think
certainly name his
I'm going to
favorite.
I'm going to stick to Nuro and Lucid, which is a unique robotaxi program that we're launching next year.
Well
I've
said.
got
Well said.
WeRide, Momenta, Pony, Lucid, AV Ride, Waymo, May Mobility, VW, Baidu. I mean, I'm not even halfway there. How do you keep it all straight?
It's been a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of hard work for our teams because, as Dave said, safety is really critical for us. And a lot of these partnerships are very geography focused as well. Many of these partnerships, for example, we have launched with a couple of partners in Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, as well as Abu Dhabi. So I think many of these partnerships are going to be based on certain regions. They're going to be based on delivery versus mobility, some of the partnerships that you mentioned. We have sidewalk robots in Los Angeles and many other cities with some of our partners. And again, if you look at our scale, both geographically speaking as well as volume-wise, it just makes a lot of sense for us to be working with the right players in the industry. But what's going to be really important is how fast can we launch and with how many vehicles, and that's where I'm super excited about working with Nuro.
Dave, speaking of partners, you recently sort of restructured the business at Nuro. You guys had been going after this delivery robot idea and doing a pretty good job with it, but then you changed where you were heading, and you were going more towards the supplier side. And I know that recently you've talked about how to stay lean, to stay capital focused, that you really can't go out and do a ton of different partnerships. Like, you have to choose smartly with Uber and Lucid and whoever else comes. Is there someone out there that you'd like to work with that you just don't have the capacity with right now that keeps you up at night?
I wouldn't say that keeps us up at night. I do think we need to be very thoughtful, going back to that maniacal focus on delivering and actually building out this future. We have had to make some tough calls around who we will partner with and which opportunities we won't pursue, because right now there are a lot of opportunities. I think for us as a business, we shifted from this fully vertically integrated delivery as a service where we're manufacturing vehicles to deliver things on roads. We were then owning and operating fleets of them. Now we're licensing just the tech, and we're working with partners to put it on marketplace to own and operate them and so on. We are looking, and we have some stuff in the works that we're not announcing right now, Sean, sorry, to do similar partnerships on the logistics side. So we have mobility as a service right now on the Uber Lucid partnership. We have logistics as a vertical we're very interested in, and we have personally owned vehicles that we're very, very interested in. And long term, we see mobility as a service and the personally owned vehicles converging. Once we have personally owned, fully autonomous vehicles, that's the future, honestly, that we're most excited about delivering. And obviously, Uber is going to be a huge partner at that point in our journey as well.
You sort of read my mind of where I was going next on the logistics thing, because you guys once bought a company called Ike Trucks. You were sort of like leaning into that direction of commercial trucking. I don't know if you know, but they've got a thing called Uber Freight. Is that something that you could collaborate on someday down the road?
Maybe someday. It's not something we've spent a huge amount of time on. I think we're very, we do think long-term trucking, and obviously we're not the first to come up with this idea, is a great application for AV. I think we have a lot of irons in the fire right now that are probably going to keep us busy for a while before we get to trucking.
You're not the only one who is focused on developing autonomy solutions that eventually could be applied full autonomy to personally owned vehicles. We had Alex Kendall from Wave on the stage yesterday. GM is talking about doing that with its own tech. They essentially killed off Cruise's robotaxi service in order to pursue that. Waymo is even talking about that being the logical endpoint. How do you compete in a market like that if we get to a point where all of those different companies are trying to do that? Is it a matter of who can get the best relationship with the automakers who are making the physical vehicle, or is there something else?
I think it's always going to be a huge element of who has the best product. And you mentioned a bunch of different players that have different positions within the space, right? I think where we're coming at it from is our bread and butter is really L4. So full autonomy. You can have a person in the car or not. It's sort of the whole kit and caboodle. We've been operating fully driverlessly on public roads for over 5 years. That puts us in pretty small company in terms of the people that you mentioned. It'd probably be just Waymo that would have anything like that level of experience. I think there are others like Wave that have an ADAS system today, and I think they I'm sure have a roadmap to get to L4, but there's a huge delta between a driver assistance system and a vehicle that you're comfortable putting kids in and no one behind the wheel. And that is really, I think, the value that we bring. So to our OEM partners, it's showing up and saying, our vision is full L4 for personally owned vehicles. We have a lot of experience knowing what it takes to safely deploy L4. We would like to be with you on the journey all the way through to L4, as opposed to, we're really excited today about a driver assistance system that we could build with you.
Is that a threat to your business down the road if everybody's working on personally owned autonomy and there's not going to be a sudden marketplace for robotaxis?
I think personal car ownership is a reality today. So while we always have said that personal car ownership over time will decline, personal car ownership is still a thing, and that'll continue to be a thing. I would say a couple of things. First of all, I think with autonomy, we have an opportunity to actually reduce personal car ownership because I think affordability and convenience is going to improve. For example, your wait times are going to improve eventually as we have more cars. And at the same time, if you do own a vehicle which is self-driving, maybe you can put it on the Uber network as well. So maybe that vehicle can make money for you. So I think all sorts of models are going to emerge in the next few years that we are not even thinking about right now.
And this is absolutely what we see as the future with personally owned, fully autonomous vehicles, is that some fraction of the people, just like some fraction of car owners today choose to drive for Uber, some fraction of owners of fully autonomous personal vehicles will choose to let those vehicles go drive for them, earn revenue for them in Uber's marketplace, and that's going to just rapidly reduce the cost of transportation for everyone.
I'm glad you brought this up because this is something that Elon Musk talks about a lot with Tesla and its own sort of burgeoning robotaxi network. And my question on that is, he in particular talks about you'll be able to buy a bunch of vehicles and be a shepherd of the flock of AVs. But doesn't that just create an arms race where people with the resources can buy up more of them and undercut on price and essentially squeeze out someone from adding their own car to the network because they can't afford to take as big a cut or as little a cut as someone with 300 vehicles on the platform?
I mean, I think it depends a little bit how pricing is determined. I mean, that's assuming that the drivers are setting pricing, which may or may not be the case, right? I also think that future is in many ways more similar to today with Uber than a future where Uber or a partner is managing a whole fleet of robo-taxis on Uber's network. Like that future where it is personally owned and there's sort of flexible supply on the network and there's surge pricing that pulls cars out of people's driveways to get onto the network. I think Sachin is doing a lot of work in the intervening years before we get there. That is a lot of hard work that probably will not be necessary when that future comes. That future is going to be a lot more like today, so perhaps simpler.
We have some version of that today in our business. We have actually a lot of cars that are owned by fleets. So you may not know when a driver comes, picks you up, do they own that? In the US, it's mostly the driver owns the car, but not all the time. But as you go internationally, in a lot of cases, the drivers don't own their cars. The cars are actually owned by fleets. So there's a non-trivial amount of cars on our platform. And we have more than 8 million drivers worldwide now. And many of those cars are not owned by the drivers. There are fleets that own, they may own as small as 5 cars, or they may own 15,000 cars. And then they employ drivers, and that's how the model works. And the same may happen in the case of autonomy as well. Now we are very involved in, for example, the fleet side of the operations in Austin and Atlanta as well, in partnership with Waymo and similarly in the Middle East. And the same, we'll have a similar arrangement with the robotaxi program with Nuro and Lucid, where either us or a fleet owner will basically take ownership of these vehicles. And there's a lot that goes into it, such as making sure that the car is clean, the car is charged, the car is maintained. So I would certainly see in the future that there will be business entities who will own a certain number of these cars, and then they'll be able to manage them, and then they'll be able to put them out. And we have already built a lot of software in that regard in terms of how do these fleets manage these vehicles, how do they put them on the Uber platform, they can see them on a map, they know when to charge them, and so on. So we'll be able to bring that along with us as we move towards more autonomous vehicles.
But I think also there's a little bit of a premise there that the scale is necessarily beneficial from an economics perspective, which usually it is, but in the case of personal vehicle ownership, in a place like San Francisco, you have people that own driveways or garages that have charging infrastructure for their vehicle. Like, that's already a sunk cost effectively for them. And so if they have a single EV or 2 EVs that they can then send off into the network, the incremental cost to them of sort of owning and operating their fleet is very, very small. So I think there's a world in which, even if you are a big fleet operator, it's not going to be easy to undercut significantly that cost that individuals will have for a very small number.
Okay. We're almost out of time, but we had Waymo's co-CEO, Takeda Maokana, on the main stage the other day. One of the things that stood out to me was she said that she didn't feel like other companies that are working on robotaxi technology are doing enough to prove that what they're doing is safe. When you guys get this partnership out next year and you start working with Lucid on the streets, are you going to do something to help people understand how safe it is? Are you going to publish safety stats around all that?
I mean, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons that we're working together, I very strongly believe, is that Nuro has had an incredible track record of safety. We've taken it very, very seriously. I mentioned 5 years of fully driverless operation, 9 years of on-road operation, and we've had no at-fault accidents in all of that time. You know, we're talking millions of miles. That does not happen by accident, right? So we are incredibly rigorous around our safety. We're still figuring out what is the right level of transparency and full exposure to provide to the public. We recognize that we do need to earn that trust. That's very important to us. Again, I think Waymo has done a really nice job over the years of doing that, and so for sure there is a massive internal alignment on what it takes to safely launch a service, and neither Nuro nor Uber nor Lucid are going to be signing off on it until we feel very, very confident that this is making roads safer.
All right, Sachin, Dave, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.